Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
G'day all. Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides, and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today, I'm here with, as a co-host with Debbie and Josh. Hello all.
Hello.
Hello. Debbie, what is today's topic of conversation?
We're talking about projected yields on brochures and incomes.
Why is this important?
Well, we often see builders putting out or providers putting out packages for sale with a rental return listed. And admittedly, some do qualify that this is subject to participants' funding, but I think it can be a little bit misleading for potential buyers seeing this and thinking that they're going to get whatever the return is that's listed, because we know that that is very much not the case.
Well, Josh, you've been working with our staff internally here. We're seeing all the stock come in from other builders and agents and whatnot. What has been the common theme with all these brochures you receive from other groups around Australia, Josh?
Well, I would say probably about 90% of brochures that I see list the max returns. So if that's a high physical support, it's two participants with 2-to-1 high physical support funding. And as we know, that's not usually the case is how things turn out.
I think it's a little bit deceiving.
Yeah.
You know, I think these brochures should always have nothing on it, to be honest. Because, you know, one can argue, an innocent investor could argue, hey, I'm Mr. Builder. You said I'm getting $200,000 here for rent. That's why I bought this brochure. I think the best thing to do out there is for builders and developers to not to quote their maximum income and be more of a realistic outcome. Josh, we've been doing a lot of analysis in our spreadsheets for the last 5 to 6 months now, I guess. We always tell our staff to not quote the maximum gross yield. What has been the average financial metric that you and the girls in the office work on to give a more realistic outcome, Josh?
Yeah, so we've changed a fair few times. We've been through a few different ways of how we show our clients as to how we calculate the returns. But at the moment, I think probably the fairest way to do it is we're showing the range of what is an estimate of what their income could be. So we're not quoting them a max price. We're showing what on the low end what it could be and also at the high end what it could be. And then we allow the investors to understand just how much variance there is when they're working out how much funding they're going to get.
I think, Debbie, we've gone through several different stages in the last 4 years, Debbie, where we did use to show the maximum yield on the spreadsheet, right? And then we went to the more realistic one, being an FA and IL combo. And then people always said to us, oh, hang on, but someone else's brochure has a higher return then. Yeah, well, we could also do that as well, I guess. But I think doing the max and the minimum, showing the range, just gives the investor the actual facts.
Yeah, it gives them far more understanding of what the potential is on that property.
Because if we give the realistic, they won't like it. They won't believe it. Like, oh, but why yours is so low? Well, it's a realistic figure, you know.
Exactly. So, and I guess this comes out of when we did start doing, well, we've been doing them for a few years now, feasibility reports, where we would go through all the different potential tenancy mixes and come up with a bunch of different returns based on all the different mixes that can be out there, or a number of more likely scenarios at least. And so we always knew that maximum is very unlikely to happen, and we've always told that. But when you see it on these brochures, and I must admit that probably most builders we work with these days are not listing potential returns, which is a good thing because they are very misleading. I'm looking at a couple that we've got here, and one of them just says rental return equals $198,000 per annum. That is if you have on this high physical support home 2 participants with high physical support funding at 2-to-1 levels.
And no doubt at 5 sprinkler level as well.
Yep. Yep, that is fire sprinkler level. But I just had a quick look at what we are advertising on our. So this is the developer's brochure. We don't issue these. When we do redo them, we recalculate the rental returns and yields. And we have now put a range in that it goes from 126,000 to 198,000 potential income. And the 126 range, Josh, if you want to just confirm what that would have been made up of.
Yeah, sure. So that would be for 2 participants with IL funding at 1 to 3. Yeah.
Right,
So,
okay, yeah. So, and just to clarify what we're talking about when we say 1 to 2, 1 to 3, if you have a participant who's got 1 to 3 funding, it means that they've got funding to live in a home with 3 participants to share with 2 others. So a 3-participant or a 3-tenant home. If they've got 1 to 2 funding, they've got funding to share with 1 other in a 2-tenant home. And that's quite a significant difference between the 2 amounts that can be in their plan.
I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. I think people think that whether that's on purpose or just they're mistaken, they don't think that the funding comes with the participant. They think the house is going to get a certain funding. And certainly a lot of clients, when they're starting to do their research, are surprised to learn that the funding comes with the participant. So whatever participant has in their funding is what the house will get, not what the house is built for.
Yeah, and in virtually every case, it's going to be lower than what the house has if they've got 3-tenant funding. The only time, and this would be probably almost never occurs, if a participant has higher funding to live either in a 2-tenant house, but they're moving into a 3-tenant house. I don't imagine that would ever happen. Then the lower amount, i.e. the house's 3-tenant funding is paid. Or if a participant has funding to live in an apartment, but they choose to move into a house, their funding is higher, but only the lower amount is paid.
Well, thank you, Debbie. If anyone is curious to know what the potential tenancy mix and tenancy income is between that 126 to 198,000 example discussion here, all you have to do is just contact our office on 1300 254397 and ask us for a tenancy mix report. Now, Debbie, what is in that report, please?
It's part of our feasibility, but it will give you a very comprehensive overview of the different tenant mixes you could have. So if it's a 2-tenant home, you could have 2 HPS, a HPS and FA, a HPS and IL, and IL and FA, 2 ILs, 2 FAs. But again, those can be broken down into 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 funding. So we list all of those different fundings and mixes and give you a total figure at the end of what that potential income would be, both the gross and the net figure.
Josh, Debbie, I think too often in the past we've realised that investors don't realise that houses can also attract villa-funded participants as well, which is lower.
Even lower than house funding, yeah.
Yeah, so this person who thinks, $198,000 will have 2 HPSs in this package here, was the brochure, he may end up with two guys with 1 to 2 villa, not 1 to 3 villa funding, I think. Do you often see 1 to 3 villa funding?
From what I understand,
Really?
villa funding is actually quite commonly given.
1 to 3?
Probably, yeah, because, the NDIS like to pay out as little as possible. So unless they're provided with really good evidence from the participants, support coordinators and OTs, whoever's putting in that report for them to get their SDA funding, we do hear quite often that the people doing those reports don't really have the experience and the knowledge. And so the NDIS just comes back with kind of the lowest funding that they can give.
I reckon for the robust participants, they're 1 to 1 or 1 to 2 in the villas. For the FA HBSs, they're either 1 to 1 or 1 to 2 in the villas, because if you're saying 1 to 3, that's a 4-bedroom house, 4-bedroom villa, which
That's right.
we very rarely see.
No.
The only way you would see a 4-bedroom or 3-tenant villa is if you actually have 3, 4, 5 houses side by side as actual houses, but they share a driveway.
So officially it's classified as a villa.
Yeah, even though it's a house, a shared driveway knocks it back to a villa status.
And the funding for villas is significantly lower.
Yeah. So in theory, you might have a 1 to 2 villa funded person, HBS, and they would work out to be, as we from our experience, they'd be in Bendigo, for example, 2 HBSs is 95,000 in a 3-bedroom villa, away plus 2 HBS villa. Imagine bringing those two guys in villa funding to an actual HBS house. Old mate who thought he's getting 198 grand on that bedroom, now he's getting 97 grand.
Yeah. So, our minimum potential yields still may not be the actual minimum because we're just working them out on house funding.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think that's another layer to it. There's so many more funding levels that it can be. I mean, there's I think Denise in our office worked out one day, I can't remember the number, but there was a huge amount of potential combinations of people that can live in a property.
Literally hundreds.
Yeah.
So,
And I think a lot of developers and builders who are going into this as building their own product, they don't know these numbers. They think that the calculator they download off the NDIS website is enough to say, okay, well, it's 160, 180 grand a year. That's what I'm getting. No, it's not what you're getting. In fact, I've never, ever come across anyone out there in my 4 years and thousands of phone calls and thousands of emails. Have I ever spoken to or engaged someone who actually knows funding levels, the correct levels? Maybe the odd SDA provider here and there, but I've never met an investor who understands it. Never. Which means everybody who's invested in SDA or about to invest in SDA has got it wrong with SDA funding.
I mean, look, we've taken 4 years to understand this. So,
yeah, we do this full time and we only figured this out recently.
Yeah.
Last 6 months.
Yeah. We were quoting it on the 1 to 2 house funding. And then we found out, 1 to 3 is the far more commonly given
and then
funding.
1 to 2 villas is lower than that.
Yeah.
So you just, it's what's the old saying? It's really random. We don't know what the funding will be because guess what? At the end of the day, it is you, the investor, who accepts the funded participant application, not us, not the provider. They submit the proposal to you guys as the investors and you guys say yes or no. So you accept yes or no, not us, not the SDA provider. And that depends upon the supply of participants in that area, the geographic area there. That is where your house is going to be or whatnot. Yeah. So the purpose of this podcast is to say the brochures you receive online, the images you see online, the verbal conversations you have with other agents out there is not necessarily correct. In fact, it's never correct. It's never, ever, ever correct. All right? I'm not saying that they're wrong or they're lying or misleading. I'm saying to you that, I'll break it down in simple terms. When you go buy a motor vehicle off the car yard, you don't walk in there to say, hey, what's the fastest speed car? 0 to 100. You don't buy that car, do you? The answer is Tesla. Is everyone buying a Tesla? No. It's not about the maximum speed. And like SDA houses, it's not about the maximum rental yield. Why do you buy a car? Comfort, longevity, maintenance. Speed is also a factor, but not the factor. So when you buy an SDA house, it's not the yield is the factor. It's about the comfort of the house. There's spaciousness of storage in the house for participants. It's the high quality products in the house that make it a better asset. The lower maintenance, the desirability of it all. So the same reasons why you buy a car, it's pretty much the same thing why you buy a house here. Because at the end of the day, you're not the one living in this house, are you? It's someone else who's a tenant, a participant, who wants to live in the forever home.
And you want to make it as desirable and as comfortable for them as you can. So, yeah, it's, as we always say, future-proof it. Add those extras and you will be then maybe more likely to get towards the higher level of that rental return.
Josh, when you talk to people ringing up our office, can you please ensure that they are aware that we have a vetting service? So if you do have a brochure or proposal from another agency out there in Australia, we're happy to review it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we don't mind people buying other people's other products or developers, building stock around Australia from other people. It's fine. But, for a small fee, I don't remember the fees, Debbie, for a small fee, we could actually vet the location and the product and the design to ensure that they are comfortable to proceed with that option. I mean,
absolutely.
What's the website details?
ndis.property/reports.
And you'll see that option on that page there. Yeah. Josh, any final words or advice from you, having seen hundreds of brochures from everyone out there?
Yeah, I guess my only thought would be, I've spoken with a lot of clients who come in looking for a certain net yield, looking for a certain gross yield, or they want above 20%. And I think after this conversation, just our houses aren't earning less than other houses out there. They're all under the same funding. It's just that, we're not quoting those huge numbers, and you shouldn't be looking at those top end numbers. So that's my only worry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. And if anyone wants to talk to Debbie, Josh, or myself further about this matter, please email us on info@NDIS.property or call us on 1300 25 4397. Thank you very much. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.